kill every spider on Earth tonight, and here is what next summer looks like. The insects, no longer eaten by the hundreds of millions of tons, erupt. Crops vanish under them. Mosquitoes and biting flies multiply past anything you have ever seen, and the diseases they carry go with them. Within a couple of seasons, the quiet, invisible thing that was holding the insect world down is gone, and the insect world does what it always wanted to. It takes over. That scenario is not science fiction. It is a straightforward reading of what spiders actually do for us, every single night. In numbers almost nobody has ever stopped to add up. Because your instinct, honed by fear, is that the spider is a simple, creepy, mechanical little thing. A reflex with legs. A trap that happens to be alive. It is nothing of the sort. That animal, with a brain smaller than a grain of rice, plans ambushes. It solves problems by thinking them through in advance.
It runs calculations about distance and risk that we build robots to perform. It may, when it sleeps, dream. We call the spider a pest, a monster, the thing we kill with a shoe. It might be the most underrated predator alive, and quite possibly the most important animal in your house. This channel takes the creatures you were taught to fear or ignore and shows you the mind and the machinery that were there all along. So if that appeals to you, the subscribe button is one tap away. And the place to begin is that number, the one behind the nightmare I just described. In 2017, two scientists, Martin Nyffeler and Klaus Birkhofer, tried to calculate something nobody had ever pinned down: how much the world's spiders actually eat. They estimated the total weight of all spiders on Earth at around 25 million tons, then worked out how much prey that mass needs to survive.
The answer came back between 400 and 800 million tons of prey killed by spiders every single year. Hold that number against ourselves for a moment, because the comparison is staggering. Every human being on Earth, all 8 billion of us, eats roughly 400 million tons of meat and fish a year combined. The world's spiders eat as much as all of humanity, and possibly twice as much. To put that another way, if every spider on the planet vanished tomorrow, the mass of prey they were removing would not simply disappear, it would keep breeding. They are not a minor part of the food web. By sheer tonnage of meat consumed, the spiders of the world are operating on the same scale as our entire species, in total silence, without anyone feeding or managing them. And more than 90% of what they eat is insects. So here is the reframe, and it is not an exaggeration. Spiders are the largest force on the planet holding the insect world in check.
Take them away, and the consequences are almost impossible to imagine. Crops stripped bare. Disease-carrying insects breeding unchecked. The quiet, invisible slaughter that spiders perform every night, in every field and forest and garden and corner of your home, is one of the load-bearing walls of life on land. The animal you flush down the sink is part of the machinery that keeps the insects from winning. An animal that eats on that scale is not a passive machine, and the way spiders catch all that prey is where the fear starts to curdle into something closer to awe. Because some of them do not just trap. They think. Meet Portia. Portia is a genus of jumping spider, and it is a spider that hunts other spiders, which is a dangerous way to make a living, and it has evolved something extraordinary to do it. Portia does not just react. It plans. In laboratory experiments, researchers placed a Portia on a tower, from which it could see two possible routes to a prey spider.
Only one route actually led to the target. The other was a dead end. To reach its prey, Portia had to choose the correct winding path, and here is the crucial part. That path often required it to first move away from the prey, losing sight of it completely, and detour around an obstacle. Portia did it. It studied the layout from its vantage point, worked out the correct route in advance, then set off along it, even when that meant turning its back on its meal and traveling for up to an hour along a path where it could no longer see the target at all. Unpack what that requires. The spider had to form a plan, hold the goal in memory while it was out of sight, and execute a route it had decided on before starting. That is abstract, forward planning. National Geographic reported it plainly.
This is a kind of intelligence usually reserved for far larger animals, with brains thousands of times bigger. And Portia's hunting is even more sinister than that.
When it invades another spider's web, it does not blunder in. It plucks the silk with its legs, experimenting with different vibrations, essentially playing the web like an instrument. It is trying to generate a signal that mimics a trapped insect, or a potential mate, luring the resident spider out toward it. And if the wind picks up, Portia will time its own movements to gusts so that the tremors it makes on the web are masked by the natural shaking, sneaking across the trap under cover of the breeze. That is deception, patience, and improvisation from an animal with a brain the size of a poppy seed. Portia can even solve problems by trial and error and remember the solution. Faced with a new type of prey, it will try different tactics, and if one works, it retains it. Some researchers who have worked with Portia describe it, only half-jokingly, as having something like a curiosity, a tendency to watch, to assess, to seem to think. A reflex with legs could never do any of that. This is a strategist, and Portia is not a freak exception, because jumping spiders in general are the intellectual heavyweights of the arachnid world, and it comes down to their eyes. Jumping spiders have 8 eyes, but the 2 big forward-facing ones are the key. They deliver spatial resolution and detail that rivals animals vastly larger, some of the sharpest vision, for their body size, of any animal on Earth. A jumping spider genuinely sees you. It will turn to look at you, track you, and lift its head to watch your face. That unnerving sense that a tiny jumping spider is aware of you is not your imagination. It is looking, and it is processing what it sees. Then, in 2022, a researcher named Nyffeler noticed something about jumping spiders that stopped arachnologists in their tracks.
She was keeping jumping spiders and filming them at night with an infrared camera, and she saw them, while hanging asleep on a silk line, undergoing regular bouts of twitching, curling their legs and, remarkably, moving their retinas. Jumping spiders can move the retinas inside their tubular eyes, and during these rest phases the retinas were flicking back and forth in periodic bursts. If that sounds familiar, it should. Rapid movements of the visual system during sleep are the signature of REM sleep in humans and other animals, the phase in which we dream. Rossler's study, published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, reported that these look like a REM sleep-like state in a spider. Now, a caution before anyone runs too far with this. We cannot climb inside a spider's head and confirm it is dreaming, and the finding is still being investigated. But the honest version is almost stranger than the headline.
A jumping spider, hanging from a thread in the dark, cycles through a phase that looks physiologically like the one in which you dream. Whether there are images behind those flicking eyes, we do not yet know. But the machinery is doing something we recognize. A mind like that needs a weapon to match it, and the spider's is not its fangs. It is the thread. Spider silk is among the strangest substances anywhere in nature, and after decades of trying, we still cannot properly copy it. Start with the headline that is true. Spider silk is, weight for weight, stronger than steel. A strand of the dragline silk that a spider hangs from can be roughly 5 times as strong, gram for gram, as a strand of steel of the same weight. But strength is only half the story, and honestly not even the impressive half. The real magic is toughness, which is the total energy a material can absorb before it breaks. A combination of being strong and being able to stretch.
And on toughness, spider silk humiliates almost everything humans make. The record holder is the Darwin's bark spider of Madagascar, discovered only in 2009. Its dragline silk is the toughest biological material ever measured, more than 10 times tougher than Kevlar, the material we put in bulletproof vests. And it needs to be, because this spider strings its webs across entire rivers and streams, anchoring bridge lines up to 25 meters long over open water, and hanging a web big enough to catch not just insects but small birds and bats. Hold that image for a second. A creature you could balance on a coin, spinning a cable strong enough to bridge a river, out of its own body, tougher than the stuff we armor soldiers with. And silk is not one material, It is a whole toolkit. A single orb-weaving spider can produce up to 7 different types of silk from different glands, each engineered for a different job. There is stiff, strong dragline silk for the frame and the safety line. There is stretchy, sticky capture silk for the spiral that catches prey. There is soft silk for wrapping eggs, and silk for wrapping prey, and fine silk for the drag lines that trail behind them. The spider is a multi-material manufacturing plant, switching polymers on demand. The engineering runs deeper still. That sticky capture silk is coated in tiny droplets of glue, and it is also a marvel of physics, capable of stretching enormously and then contracting to stay taut, so a struggling insect only tangles itself worse. Human materials scientists have spent decades and vast sums trying to mass-produce artificial spider silk, for everything from surgical sutures to body armor to biodegradable replacements for plastic. We are still not truly there. A garden spider does it every night, from a standing start, using dead flies as raw material, at body temperature, with mill factory. It remains one of the great unsolved problems in materials engineering, and the spider solved it 100 million years before we existed. And the web itself is not a single design. It is a category of technology with wild variety. The classic wheel-shaped orb web is only one kind. There are sheet webs, tangled cobwebs, funnel webs with a tunnel the spider bolts down into, and dense tripwire arrangements. But some spiders have taken web building somewhere close to genius. The net-casting spider, or ogre-faced spider, does not sit and wait. It builds a small rectangular net, holds it stretched between its front legs like a gladiator's weapon, hangs upside down over a walkway, and then, when prey passes beneath, throws the net down over it, expanding the mesh in a fraction of a second to engulf the victim. It is active, targeted, hand-thrown hunting. The bolus spider goes further into cunning. Instead of a web, it dangles a single silk line with a sticky blob on the end, a bit like a fishing line. And it does not just wait, it chemically cheats. It releases a scent that mimics the sex pheromone of a female moth, luring male moths in, and then swings its sticky bolas at the deceived, love-struck moth as it flies past. A spider that fishes, using a lure baited with a counterfeit of its prey's own mating signal. And the trapdoor spider builds a silk-hinged door over its burrow, camouflages it with soil and debris until it is invisible, and waits underneath with its legs on trip lines, feeling for footsteps, before bursting up through the ground to drag prey down. These are not variations on a theme. They are wholly different inventions, evolved independently, each one a distinct solution to the problem of catching food. Not all spiders build webs at all.
A huge number, including the jumping spiders and the wolf spiders, are active hunters that stalk, chase, and pounce on prey the way a cat does, using speed and eyesight rather than a trap. The image of the spider sitting passively in a web is only half the family. The other half is out patrolling, hunting on foot, actively pursuing. Silk holds prey, wraps eggs, and drops the spider on a safety line. But it does one more thing that almost nobody knows about, and it is the reason spiders are on nearly every scrap of land on Earth. Spiders fly.
They cannot flap, obviously, and they have no wings. But young spiders, and some small adults, perform a behavior called ballooning. The spider climbs to a high point, a fence post, a blade of grass, tiptoes up on its legs, raises its abdomen to the sky, and releases fine strands of silk into the air. Then it lets go, and it sails away. Spiders have been found ballooning kilometers up in the atmosphere, and they routinely cross hundreds of kilometers of open ocean this way. It is a major reason spiders colonize almost every landmass on Earth, including remote islands, and famously, they are among the first creatures to arrive on newly formed volcanic islands, raining down from the sky. For a long time we assumed ballooning was simply the wind catching the silk. But research published in 2018 by Erica Morley and Daniel Robert revealed something far weirder. Spiders can sense the Earth's atmospheric electric field, the natural voltage in the air, and they use it to fly. On a fine day, the atmosphere carries a measurable electric charge, and the spider's silk, released into it, picks up a charge and is pushed upward by the field, The way your hair stands up mere static electricity. In the lab, the researchers could make spiders balloon on demand purely by switching on an electric field, with no wind at all, and the tiny sensory hairs on the spider's legs, called trichobothria, visibly responded to the field. The spider is not just a glider. It is reading an invisible electrical map of the sky and using it to take off. An animal we think of as earthbound is quietly one of the great aeronauts of the planet. Occasionally this happens on a scale that looks apocalyptic. After floods or in the right autumn conditions, huge numbers of spiders will balloon at once, and the drifting silk lines settle over whole landscapes, draping fields, fences, and trees in vast sheets of gossamer.
In places like Australia, it has produced fields that look snowed under in silk, kilometers of gleaming web, the ground and the crops veiled in white. People find it eerie and biblical. What they are actually looking at is a mass migration. Thousands upon thousands of tiny spiders that have just parachuted out of the sky to colonize new ground, each one having read the electric field and let go. It is one of the largest and least understood animal movements happening all around us, and most people have never even registered it as a thing that occurs. Ballooning also drags the spider's importance far beyond the corner of your kitchen. Its real place in the living world is enormous. Spiders sit near the base of the terrestrial food web, both as one of its great predators and as food themselves. Countless birds, lizards, frogs, wasps, and small mammals depend on spiders as a core part of their diet. A single wren feeding chicks may bring hundreds of spiders to the nest.
Remove spiders and you do not just unleash the insects. You also starve everything that eats spiders. And the shock ripples upward through the whole system. They are a keystone in a way that is genuinely hard to overstate, holding the middle of the web of life together from a position we almost never think to look at. Their impact on us specifically is enormous and almost entirely invisible. Many of the insects spiders kill in colossal numbers are the ones that matter most to human survival. Crop pests that would otherwise devastate harvests. And the biting insects that spread malaria, dengue, and other diseases that have killed more humans than every war combined. Farmers and ecologists increasingly recognize spiders as a natural form of pest control worth protecting. An unpaid, self-replicating, pesticide-free army defending the world's food supply. Every time we blanket a field in insecticide, we tend to kill the spiders too, and in doing so remove the very thing that was suppressing the pests for free. For all that, the spider running your ceiling is a piece of machinery so alien that most of what you assume about it is wrong, starting with the most basic label of all. First, the obvious correction that nobody seems to know. A spider is not an insect. Insects have 6 legs and 3 body segments. Spiders have 8 legs and 2, and they belong to a completely separate group, the arachnids, closer to scorpions than to any fly. They diverged from insects hundreds of millions of years ago. Lumping spiders in with insects is like lumping a shark in with a jellyfish because they both live in the sea. And spiders are ancient beyond easy comprehension.
They have been around for something in the region of 300 million years, which means spiders were spinning silk before the dinosaurs existed, survived the extinction that wiped the dinosaurs out, and are still here, essentially perfected, long after the giant reptiles became museum exhibits. When you squash a spider, you are ending a design that predates trees flowering, that has been refined across a span of time the human mind cannot really hold. And they are almost unimaginably numerous and widespread. There are more than 50,000 described species of spider, with many thousands more still unnamed, and they live on every continent except Antarctica, from rainforest canopies to deserts, from mountaintops above the tree line to caves, and even underwater. The diving bell spider spends its whole life submerged, spinning a silk dome, filling it with air bubbles carried down from the surface, and living inside its own scuba tank on the riverbed. Studies of spider density in some habitats have found staggering numbers, in the region of hundreds of thousands to over 1 million spiders per hectare of grassland or forest. You are never far from one, and there is a well-worn statistic that you are, on average, only a few feet from a spider at almost any moment. Whatever the exact figure, the truth behind it is real. They are everywhere, all the time, mostly unseen. The range of sizes is extreme too. The smallest spiders are less than half a millimeter long, small enough to sit comfortably on the head of a pin. At the other end, the Goliath bird-eater tarantula of South America has a leg span approaching 30 centimeters, roughly the size of a dinner plate, and can weigh as much as a small apple. It is heavy enough that you can hear it walking across dry leaves, and it hunts prey up to the size of frogs and mice. Despite the fearsome name, it rarely eats birds, and like most tarantulas, its bite is, to a human, roughly comparable to a bee's sting. Its real defense is stranger. It flicks tiny barbed hairs off its abdomen at attackers, hairs that irritate skin, eyes, and airways. Tarantulas in general overturn the fear once you know them. They are long-lived to a degree that shocks people, some females living 20, 30, even beyond 40 years, making them among the longest-lived of all invertebrates and outlasting most family dogs many times over. They are so docile that they are among the most popular exotic pets in the world, and keepers describe them as calm, deliberate, low-key animals. The giant hairy spider of nightmares is, in reality, one of the more placid creatures you could keep in a jar. Their legs do not work like yours, and this is one of my favorite facts about them. Spiders have limited muscle for extending their legs outward. Instead, they push their legs out using hydraulic pressure, pumping body fluid into the limbs to straighten them, like tiny pistons. This is why a dead spider curls up into a ball. Once the heart stops and the pressure drops, there is nothing to hold the legs extended, so they fold inward.
A spider walking across your ceiling is running on a hydraulic system, not a purely muscular one. The way they eat is pure science fiction. Spiders cannot chew, and most cannot swallow solid food at all. So they digest their prey outside their own bodies. A spider injects or vomits digestive enzymes into or onto its victim, and those enzymes liquefy the insect from the inside, dissolving its tissues into a broth. Then the spider sucks up the resulting liquid, drinking its meal and leaving behind a hollow husk. The neat, empty insect shells you sometimes find are exactly that, prey that has been turned to soup and drunk dry. And the fangs delivering that first strike are not teeth, they are called chelicerae, and in most spiders they are tipped with hollow points connected to venom glands. All of which leads to the thing everyone is really afraid of, the venom, and the truth there is going to be reassuring. The overwhelming majority of the roughly 50,000 known spider species are entirely harmless to humans. Their venom is tuned for insects, and their fangs are often too small to even pierce human skin. Of all those thousands of species, only a small handful have venom medically dangerous to people. The spider in your bathroom is, almost certainly, no threat to you whatsoever. It is a specialist in killing things the size of a fly, and you are roughly the size of a mountain to it. And the fear turns out to point in exactly the wrong direction. Spider venom has quietly become a goldmine for medicine. A single spider's venom can contain hundreds of distinct compounds, each a precisely evolved molecule that acts on nerves and cells. Scientists are mining these venoms for new painkillers, for drugs that might protect the brain after a stroke, for environmentally friendly insecticides, and more. The thing you are most afraid of, the venom, is turning out to be a pharmacy of molecules that may one day save your life. The funnel web spider, one of the genuinely dangerous ones, has a component in its venom being studied for its potential to shield heart and brain cells from damage. Now the senses, because a spider experiences a world you cannot even perceive. Most spiders have 8 eyes, yet many of them see quite poorly because for a web-building spider vision barely matters. The web is the sense organ. A spider sitting at the hub of its web is reading the entire structure through vibration, feeling the tremble of a trapped fly, and able to tell from the frequency and location whether it has caught prey, a threatening intruder, or just a leaf blown into the strands. Some can distinguish a mate from a meal purely by how the silk shivers. The web is not just a trap.
It is an extension of the spider's nervous system, a giant vibration-sensing organ that it built and stands inside. And spiders are covered in exquisitely sensitive hairs that detect the faintest air currents and vibrations. So a spider can feel you approaching from the movement of air alone, long before any question of seeing you. It lives in a world of touch and tremor and electrical fields, a sensory reality so far from ours that we can barely imagine it. The females run the show, often literally. In many species, the female is far larger than the male, sometimes many times his size. And yes, the reputation is partly earned. In a number of species, the female may eat the male during or after mating. But even here, the story is more interesting than the cliché.
In some species, the male has evolved elaborate strategies to avoid being eaten, offering the female a wrapped insect as a distraction, or performing careful courtship dances and vibrational songs to announce that he is a suitor and not a snack. Male jumping spiders in particular perform astonishing, colorful courtship displays, drumming and waving and dancing, essentially auditioning for their lives. And spider motherhood can be shockingly tender for an animal we consider cold. Many spiders guard their egg sacs fiercely and carry them everywhere. Wolf spiders carry their newly hatched young on their backs, dozens of them clinging to the mother as she hunts. And in one genuinely startling case, some species practice a behavior where the mother's body becomes the baby's first meal, sacrificing herself so her offspring can survive their first days. There is even a spider that produces something functionally like milk, a nutritious secretion it feeds to its young, a level of parental care we associate with mammals, showing up in an arachnid. A couple more facts round out how strange the body's life cycle is. A spider grows by molting, periodically shedding its entire external skeleton and climbing out of it, soft and vulnerable, to expand before the new one hardens. It is a dangerous, exhausting process, and a spider that gets stuck in its old skin dies. Remarkably, some spiders can regenerate a lost leg over successive molts, regrowing a limb torn off in a fight or a narrow escape. And a spider always trails a dragline behind it, a silk safety line anchored as it moves, so that if it falls or is knocked off a surface, it does not plummet, it dangles and climbs back up. Every walking spider is, in effect, permanently roped in, like a climber who never stops belaying. Put the pieces beside each other and a creature emerges that almost nobody has ever actually seen, standing behind the cartoon of the thing they fear. Strip away the reflex with legs caricature and what is left is an ancient, precise, and in some cases genuinely intelligent predator, older than the dinosaurs, that plans ambushes, sees the world in sharp detail, reads the electric field of the sky to fly, manufactures a material we cannot replicate, digests its food outside its body, and carries in its venom a library of medicines we are only beginning to read. And every year, quietly, it eats a weight of insects that rivals the entire meat consumption of the human race, holding back a tide that would otherwise overwhelm us. We have spent our whole history treating this creature as something to fear and destroy. But the spider in the corner of your room is not lying in wait for you. It has no interest in you at all. You are not prey, you are not a threat worth its venom, and to that tiny hunter you are simply a vast, slow feature of the landscape. It is there for the flies, the mosquitoes, the things that actually bite you and carry disease. It is, in the most literal sense, on your side, working the night shift in a war against insects that you would very much lose without it. Look at the next one you find properly, hanging patiently in its web or frozen on the wall watching you with those two dark forward eyes, and the monster dissolves. It is a 300-million-year-old engineer, a strategist with a brain the size of a seed, an aeronaut, a chemist, and an insect control system so effective that nothing we have built comes close, standing guard in the corner of your home for free, asking for nothing, and getting a rolled-up newspaper in return. I will leave you with a small experiment rather than a speech. Tonight, if you find a spider indoors, do not reach for the shoe. Just watch it for 2 minutes. Notice how it moves, how it waits, how it responds to you. See if you can catch it doing something that looks like a decision. Then tell me in the comments what you saw and whether it changed anything. I suspect, for a lot of you, it will. And if you would rather understand the animals around you than fear them, The subscribe button is the only web worth walking into. Another creature you have been getting completely wrong is next.